Hey guys, it's Kegi, and today we're taking apart probably one of the most famous motorcycles in the world, probably the only motorcycle so adored by school kids and girls. That's the Yamaha R1. Yes sir, today. We'll check it out. A bit of history. The Yamaha R1 first appeared in '98 based on the Yamaha YZF Thunder Race. Its engine was tweaked a little, generally 5 valves per cylinder, all this stuff that Yamaha is so loved for. Then ZARB was also introduced for the first time. There was immediately an inverted fork of this type, and then naturally 150 horsepower and 108 horsepower. On a dry weight of 177 kilograms, of course, the main competitor was the Fireblade CBR 900. Yamaha had many generations of the R1, of course. There were many kinds of changes, but not very interesting. How the bike became a cult classic, so to speak, an icon among sport motorcycles. Naturally, this is Yamaha's flagship sport bike, that's all. Let's put it this way, the latest technologies, whatever they might be, naturally enter the motorcycle industry exclusively from the realm of sports motorcycles. It initially starts from MotoGP races, then the World Superbike Championship and so on. Then they are adopted for use in civilian sports bikes, and then the rest of the motorcycles are fitted out with them. So regardless of people's negative attitudes towards sports or how much they love them, they deserve their give credits, because it's this category of motorcycles that gives us new technologies for motorcycle development. Let's start with the disadvantages. The first negative is a rather brittle subframe, and many owners complain about Yamaha R1 because the subframe itself is quite brittle. It happens so that it breaks not only during an accident but also under heavy load. Yes, of course, it implies that you can't ride girls weighing 80 kilograms, but it's not necessary. The second disadvantage is a weak fork, and the issue is not that the fork itself is weak, it doesn't work well, but the fact is that the components of this fork, the parts that make it up, are made, let's just say it's to save money, because the traverses are really flimsy. It's a very idiotic system for attaching the lock nut on the top of the steering column, which breaks, let's say, the frame itself, and the rubber seal. The axle that fastens the wheel is also really, it's not thought out well. It's a pretty weak point. I don't know why they didn't pay attention to it, but most owners single out this problem as the main problem with the piece. The third disadvantage is the tensioner. Yes, of course, there are loads of myths about this, but people still often think that the tensioner on the Yamaha R1 is quite a problematic spot, meaning it needs to be replaced. There's aftermarket options, of course there are. An obvious disadvantage that you probably guessed is the danger. Yes, the Yamaha R1 is dangerous enough, but it's not dangerous because it's fast or because it accelerates unpredictably fast, like they used to say about the carburetor versions, which kind of give you problems. Now actually, in my opinion, and this is purely subjective, the danger of this motorcycle lies exactly in the fact that it's a sport bike, and a person who doesn't know how to use it properly tries to show off and pretend in front of everyone that they can ride it. This is what I would, let's say, call a delusion, and the person's lack of experience leads to tragic results. Because the Sport has a lot of torque, you twist the throttle thinking, now I'm going to take off. But you don't go anywhere, only when you really need to. To finish all the maneuvers to slow down, it only starts to undermine from this moment. And this, I think, often leads to some sad consequences. This is a subjective downside, so in general you might not even count it. If there were downsides of the Yamaha YZF R1, let's now move to the pros. There are a lot of them here. I will single out only 5 because, well, you can talk endlessly. Let's start with the first plus, which is reliability. Yes, Yamaha R1. It's quite a reliable motorbike. Yes, it has some problems with tensioners and such, but in general the engine is very reliable, and it has proven itself as one of the most reliable, because even now there are carburetor versions being ridden. So almost 20 years have passed, so in general the motorcycle is very reliable. The second pro is the power handling ratio. It has not the highest horsepower, it's not the lightest weight, but let's say it combines horsepower, well-designed geometry, good frames, use of modern technology that gives really sharp steering response and excellent dynamics. Yeah, it doesn't always have the best dynamics, there are better dynamics, but the combination of ride and handling that makes this the best motorcycle in. The third advantage is the design. That's naturally a subjective point, but I don't like it, I will say it honestly. I only like the latest or maybe the previous generation, but most people really like the way the Yamaha R1 looks. Girls like the way the R1 looks, so let it be, let it look good. Although in my opinion the R6 looks a lot better. The fourth advantage is kind of sad if you think about it, but basically parts availability, yeah, people crash these bikes all the time, so there are loads of parts, there are so many parts for the R1. The fifth advantage is its cutting-edge technology. As I stated earlier, the Yamaha R1 serves as a flagship, incorporating everything used in MotoGP, Superbike World Championship, and any conceivable stock open races, all of which is slowly finding its way into the R1. Some of the technologies present in the R1 include an aluminum frame that is both light and sturdy, fully adjustable sport suspensions dating back to long forgotten times, a slipper clutch, a ram air system, and the UCCI system, which adjusts the length of the intake duct, and correspondingly the UCCT, a computer-controlled throttle, among other innovative technologies. Basically anything you can think of, Yamaha produces. It's extremely impressive, and another pleasing aspect is that there are versions that don't require a power commander. Essentially it's integrated into the stock brains, a bit like icing on top of a cake. In general, these are some of the advantages of the R1 naturally. Everyone is familiar with those stories stating that if you decide to get a Yamaha R1 as your first bike, you will inevitably crash, but in this case, you must make a choice. I'm not inclined to think that it's such a dangerous thing that it will kill anyone beginner again, but also naturally, of course, I would not advise anyone either. But the Yamaha R1 is, of course, a very strong pipe extension cord, and the main reason for this is, of course, the impossibility realization of its potential in the city. That is, no matter how anyone says, in the city, it is impossible to realize its potential 100%. Yes, as a toy, why not, but more. This is unlikely to be good for anything, because most likely a pilot who drives this motorcycle doesn't know how to ride it. I'm not talking about all of them, but most of them don't. They can, even if they had the opportunity to realize their potential, they would not be able to do so, especially in city. Actually, R6 will be faster than R1 in my opinion, because 100 R6 will gain a lot faster than, well, not much, but faster than R1. Here it turned out to be a release of reviews, pros and cons. Now I was a little busy with motards to rebounds and so on, something like that, so there was a little break. Well,